Hello and welcome along to After Effects Basics with your host Robert Smith. In this video we're going to start to look at the typography in After Effects, and let me tell you, you're in for an absolute treat. The amazing amount of things you can do with type in After Effects. For example, if you're used to working with type in InDesign or Illustrator or Photoshop, it's all static type, nothing tends to move. The minute the type starts to move, things get very interesting. Okay, so let's get stuck in. Now, the typography in After Effects is done using this little T like it is in most applications. So let's say, for example, you come in here and that's looking like that over here. The minute you click on the T up here, you'll notice over on the right hand side here you get some the equivalent of the character dialog box in Photoshop, where you can change font sizes and leading and all that sort of thing. So let's get to actually setting some type. So I select the T like that, then click on the stage, and I'm just going to type in the word Enmore like that. And if I just double click on it, I can make it a little bit bigger, and using the shortcut, I won't use the shortcut, I'll do that in a minute, but over here where it says 36, I can just click and drag that up to make it bigger like that. And the font I want to use is something called Franchise, so I'll just type in Franchise like that, and there it is. But what I can do, of course, like I can in all Adobe applications, I can select that, and using up and down arrow I can go through the fonts like that. Let's go back to Franchise, and there it is there. Okay, now I want to make it that a little bit bigger, like this. And let's have a look at it. Put it in the middle of the stage here. I can click and drag it. Now, a thing to notice about it, it takes up the whole timeline, just like a still image does. Whenever you put any type like that, it'll take up the whole timeline. Now, before we start to do any animating with this type, I want to introduce something called the anchor point. Now, I've avoided it up to this point because it's a little bit tricky. But the anchor point is one of the transform options. So if I go down here and open up my transform options, like every layer receives these when you create it. We've looked at opacity, rotation, scale, and position. Now let's have a look at this thing called the anchor point. And the anchor point's this little thing here. You can just see it. You might not be able to see it on this video. But what it does, it gives you the rotation point. As you can see, I'm just dragging my rotation, my second number in the rotation property, and it's rotating around that point. Now that's going to come in handy in a minute, but I'll just Apple Z that back to there. Now, in this case, we want this to zoom out from the middle, this type. So to do that, we're going to have to move our anchor point. And it's quite a simple process. I'm just going to grab the X of the anchor point. See, as I drag it, it drags it to the right. And I'll use the Y to put it right in the middle like that. So that's the anchor point there. I use these two numbers to move it. And once I've put it where I want it to be, I'm just going to click and drag that back into position like this. And we're ready to go. That anchor point can get away on you a little bit, okay, but it's a great, once you get a handle on it, it's quite clever for doing all sorts of animations. But okay, I've just moved my anchor point right into the middle there. So why I did that, so when I start to scale up and down, it'll scale from that point in the middle. And it'll also rotate from that point as well, which is what we want it to do. So I'll just Apple Z that back. So let's get to animating. What I want to do, I want to zoom this in and out and rotate it. To do that, I'm going to zoom straight back out again using the scale property over here. I'm just going to grab it like this and just scale it right down so it's quite small and it's in the middle. Actually, I'll scale it right up first to see if it's centered correctly. That's about center. So I'll just move it to the right a little bit. Okay, that's where we want it to scale up to. Okay, so now I'm going to scale it back down, just dragging right down to about here so you can hardly see it. Right down to about 1% like that. And I'm going to put a keyframe like this. I'm going to move along. I might zoom in on my timeline a little bit. Remember how to do that by just dragging this yellow thing. Just drag it so it comes in 1 second intervals, which is what we want. And I'll just move my keyframe to about time, to about, say, 1 second. I'm going to scale it right up to about this big, like that. Very nice indeed. That's exactly what I wanted to do, scale right up like that. Let's just press the space bar and watch that. Okay, very nice. Now here's a little trick. What I want to do is I want it to scale back to where it came from. And to do that, I'm simply going to select this keyframe here and copy it. Command C to copy it. Move my playback head to about 2 seconds, approximately 2 seconds. I could, of course, go over here and type in 200, and that will take me to 2 seconds. And here, I'm just going to paste that keyframe. I've just copied it, Apple V, and it will paste wherever the playback head is. So right now, up it comes, looking good, and back it goes like that. Okay, great. So I'm just going to now copy this keyframe here, the second one, which is where it's big, and I'm going to put that at, say, 3 seconds and paste that in Apple V. So now I've got up it comes, back it goes, and back up again it goes. And I'm just going to, again, go to 4 seconds this time and find which keyframe. By pressing the letter J, I'm just going between my keyframes. That's the small keyframes. I'm going to copy that, Command C. I'm going to go to about 4 seconds and paste that in. So let's see what it does. It starts off small, gets big, gets small again, gets big, and goes back to small. That's fantastic. If I press the space bar to watch that, no, that's all very good, but it's all far too slow. Now here's a neat little trick with keyframes. What I'd like to do is I'd like to keep that relationship between my keyframes, but I want to make it happen a lot shorter. So to do that, I'm just going to select all of my keyframes by dragging across here like this, dragging a marquee, and holding the Option key down, or Alt on a PC. I just click and drag. You'll notice that the time between the keyframes is getting shorter, but they're staying in proportion or relationship to each other. So let's watch that. That should be quite dramatic. Up it comes. Yeah, very dramatic. Maybe too dramatic, so I'm going to hold the Option key and drag it to the right just a little bit. Like that. Very nice. Okay, that's what I want. Now to get back to this keyframe here, I'm going to press the letter J as the shortcut. Now I want to introduce some rotation. So I'm going to put a rotation keyframe here like that at that point in time, and I'm going to go move along a little bit, and I'm going to copy one of these keyframes here, where the type is quite big, so I'll press the letter J to go back between my keyframes. So that's the keyframe I want, so I'll just copy that, Command C, and I'll paste it in here about Apple V like that, so up it comes again. And while I'm on that keyframe, again, to go to the right, I press the letter K, J to the left to go to the next keyframe. So I'll press K to go to that keyframe. And what I want to do, I want to rotate it at probably twice. We'll rotate it twice, which is quite dramatic. So let's have a look at that. Up it comes, backwards and forwards. Second time it rotates like that. Very nice indeed. And what I want to do is I want it to scale back a little bit at that point there. So I'm just going to move along just that little bit along the timeline, and I'm going to scale it down just a fraction. Scale it down just down to about that big like that, so it's not going very far. And I might even drag that keyframe to the left a little bit. So let's watch that. Fantastic. That's exactly what I want it to do. Now what I want to do is bring some ease into the situation. Right now it's looking very mono speed, if you like. Now to fix that, I'm going to select all of those keyframes by dragging a marquee over, going to Animation, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease, and now they should start and finish just a little bit more smoothly, if you like. Okay, now what happens is when things start to move like these are, they're moving quite quickly, especially in that when it's rotating, is that it looks like there's a bit of an artifact, I think is the term they use there. Now there's a great little thing we can do in After Effects is to apply something called motion blur. Now I'll just close that up for a second so we can see what's happening. Now on this layer here, now what I want to do is I've got to make sure that I've got that my timeline's looking like this. If it's looking like that and you can't see the motion blur, just click on toggle switches down here, and your timeline will look like that. Now to apply a motion blur, it's a two-stage operation. First of all, you have to click on this little. You'll notice here there's a little square like that, and then when you click on it, the little icon comes in it like that. But that won't do anything until we click on this thing up here. So you look at it like this. This thing up here actually turns on the motion blur, and this applies it to a layer. You can put on as many layers if you like. But as you can see, the type's looking a little bit more blurred, and if we play that, it just looks a little bit better. As you can see, it's a little bit slow. like that, because the motion blur really tends to slow down the render like that. But that's exactly what we want. It looks fantastic. Okay, so what we want to do now at this point, we want to actually add another piece of typography to it, and so I'll open that up so I can see. I'll press the letter U. That'll show me my keyframes that I've got on that layer there, and I'll just zoom back in again so I can see that by pressing K, 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 K. Okay, that's where I want my second line to fade in. To do that, I'm going to click on the type tool like this, and the minute I click on the stage, actually I had that layer selected, so that's no good. So I'll go back to the type tool again, and I'm going to drop the size down before I even start. Drop it down to about 87 like that, and then click. And the minute I click on it, you'll notice I get another layer, and I'm going to type in caps, you know you want to be there like that, and I'm going to change the color of that. I'm going to make it orange, so click over here, get an orange color. There's a nice color, that'll do. And I'm going to zoom it up a little bit, make it just a little bit bigger. While it's still selected, I'm just dragging so it's the same width as the Enmore. Now, don't leave your caps lock on whatever you do, or you'll get that horrible red warning. I'll do it again for you. Oh, actually, I won't do that till I drag this down. I'll put my caps lock on and change something. You get this horrible little red thing. So if that happens to you, don't panic, just turn your caps lock off and everything's good. Okay, so I want that to be there like this, and I don't want it to start till about here, till the Enmore comes into rests in place. So I'm just going to drag my layer to about here. I'm going to press the I to go to the in point of that layer. I'm going to press the letter T to get my opacity up. And I'm going to start off with an opacity of 0, like that. I'm going to move along a little bit to about here, say, and then fade that up to 100%. I'm going to leave that on for a couple of seconds. To do that, I'm going to click over here, and then I'm going to zoom a little bit along again and fade it back to 0. And there it is. So let's watch that in action. Very dramatic, fantastic. Okay, actually I might not actually fade that out, I might just leave it there. So I'm going to get rid of that last keyframe like that, and it will just stay there. Okay, that's the first part of our basic type animation. In the next video we'll add some more type and some more transform properties. Okay, thanks for watching.